Thanks as always to Jane Street, principal sponsor of the Stand Up Maths channel. The year 2020 is a census year here in the USA, and because the census of 1890 arguably led to our modern computers, I thought I'd have a closer look at how censuses work and what happened in the 19th century. To help me out, I have, of course, a friendly American. It's Grant of 3 Blue, 1 Brown fame, who's going to be my reference point for all things American. So in the US, you have to have a census every 10 years.
It's in the Constitution.
In the Constitution?
Yeah.
Right, so it's baked into the country. Every 10 years, you check everyone. And why is that?
I assume it's for House of Representatives stuff, to choose how many people are going to represent each region. Maybe Thomas Jefferson was particularly data oriented and could foresee the importance of that, but I have no idea.
That's great, but that's very early on. That's like 1700s. We are doing a census every 10 years.
Yeah.
The problem was, by the time they got to the 1880 census, it took them 8 years to analyze all the data, and they realized if they carried on like that, the 1890 census would take more than 10 years. So they have to do another census before they even finished analyzing the previous one. And because it's in the Constitution, which is famously hard to change, they didn't have an option. So what they did was they took some of the data from the 1880 census and ran a competition to see who could analyze it faster. It was actually one of the employees of the Census Bureau who came up with a punch card tabulating machine that did it. So we're actually here. This is the Museum of Computer History near San Francisco, which is why Grant has joined me. And have you been here before?
Maybe 2 years ago. It's been a while, so it'll be as much of a playground for me as it is for you.
Because I think it's been like 5 years since I was last here.
Okay.
So
a lot of computing has happened.
A lot is advanced.
Every device from 5 years ago is now...
should be in here. It's a good point. So we're going to see if we can find the original tabulating machine.
And was this the first punch card machine, or were there punch card machines before that?
There were punch card machines before that, but they were like looms.
That's what I thought. Something associated with weaving and making textiles, but not for data processing.
But I believe that Hollerith was inspired by train tickets, which were also punched. They put holes in to log the person who had the ticket. They would punch it different ways, depending on who had the ticket and where they got on and where they were going.
Your name is Matt, so M-A-T-T.
Yeah, I think almost to the point of, you've got a beard, punch the beard bit.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay, so it's like a game of Guess Who, but in punch card
but in punch
edition.
card form. So I don't know, people who know more about train tickets can let us know. But I believe Hollerith wasn't inspired by looms, was inspired by transportation tickets. And in here, they've got a rebuild of the original machine. So we're going to find that. We're going to check out an IBM machine, which they're running this afternoon. Also punch cards, very exciting. And I will see if we can spot a calculator we own.
I want to see if they'll run mine.
You've got an actual punch card that we're going to, I don't know if they'll let you put that in the machine unsupervised. We'll give it a go. Please do not bring your own punch cards.
There was no rule against it.
No signs.
Yeah.
There will be after this. Okay, so we're going to head in, see what we can find.
All right.
What are you checking out there, Grant?
I'm looking at the sector. Is this a kind of
sector.
slide rule, or is it a predecessor to slide rules? I sort of like the angst of this slide rule user.
That's my face when I'm doing a calculation.
It's kind of good to know that that's the experience of the experts with it, not just me.
I very much like the giant slide rule, which I believe is for extra precision. So we've found the abacus section of the museum. So we've gone too early, I believe. I love this one over here. Check this out. There's actually a built-in calculator. So I don't know if that's so you can double check your abacusing on the side.
That's hilarious.
We've been briefly distracted by mechanical calculators, which I think, if anything, are too modern for what we're after. I swear we'll get to punch cards in a second, but I've just noticed calculators over here. Oh, they've got the original HP. Grant has discovered a drawer full of, oh my goodness, look at these. Oh, it's got a little professor. That is James Grimes' absolute all-time favorite calculator. That's where his nickname came from.
Wait, really?
The Little Professor.
Oh,
That's right, I made that up.
so gullible.
He's
I'm
called the
waiting
little professor for very different reasons. There it is.
there it is.
That's it. So this is it. That is the Hollerith tabulating machine. Any questions?
Do you have any idea how this worked?
Okay, so here's how it works. Once people had filled out their census form, they were entered into punch cards using this machine over here. This is a kind of like a punch card encoder. So people would read the handwritten notes. They would move around this thing to point to the right bit they wanted to punch. And then up on the arm, it was punching holes into a card. And so because you got these guide holes, it made it a lot more accurate.
Oh, so it's like a way of making it bigger for
Yeah,
you to just
yeah.
like punch in nice and
So
quick.
there's actually a very cool video online of a old lady named Bubbles, who as a teenager had to use one of these to do
Oh.
data entry.
That's fascinating.
And they put her in front of one and she's like, oh yeah, I remember
and
this.
she immediately just goes
yeah,
really quickly.
she was off and racing. It was incredible. So they would just get all the census data, punch it into the punch card. The punch card would then go into this kind of reading device. And it looks like some kind of torture thing with
I was
loads of
thinking
needles.
medieval torture mixed with steampunk design?
Pretty much. So you'd put the card in there, you would lower this press, and the needles, if there was a hole in the card, would go into liquid mercury underneath and complete a circuit.
That's hilarious. Okay.
So the ones that made it into the mercury would then have current going along that wire. It would then feed into all these dials. These dials would use like a ratchet system. So each time they got a bit of current, they would ratchet one over, and then you just feed in loads and loads and loads of cards, and once you were done, you'd read off all the totals from this.
Why are there like 30 different dials? Are they counting like the various different questions that people were asking?
So all those dials, you could set one to just keep a tally of all the cards which had a particular answer to a particular question.
So I say like, I live in Montana, and it's like the Montana dial.
Yeah, the
goes
Montana
up.
dial goes up. Or
Okay.
how many people answered that they were a farmer.
Okay.
And at the end, it will tell you of all the cards you put through, this many said farmer. But you could actually rig some of them to do and statements. So if you had a certain disease, and you were a farmer, and you lived in a household with someone, right? And so some of these would only increment if a combination of needles or whatever they are made contact. It's not technically a computer, I
It does
guess.
and.
It's doing and. It's doing and.
If it just had an and.
Is that Turing complete? I don't know. The models in the future could do adding. So this one, all you could do is run loads of cards through and get a tally. So at the end of the day, you'd have to go through and record all the information off the dials and then write that down somewhere and then reset it all and start from scratch on the next set of cards. We should say, by the way, that sadly this is a reproduction. This is not the original machine. I found one original machine, the Smithsonian have one.
Oh.
But it's locked away in the
Too precious.
Smithsonian vault somewhere. I asked them, we're not allowed to have a go on the thing.
Shame.
Now the really cool bit actually is over here, this machine on the side. So you've got the main machine which you put the cards in and you do the stampy thing and then they end up on the tallies. But this down here, that's a sorting box. And so what would happen is each time you put a card in, not only would it increment all the dials that you'd set to record whatever information, but one of these little lids would open and that tells you which one to put the card in. So as well as keeping a tally of the data, you were sorting the cards at the same time for the data analysis. So that's why there's like this umbilical cable joining it up, and depending on what you've programmed the bins to be, they would open or close, and you just, boom, file it in the right spot.
What was the throughput here? How many
That's
people could they
They
process?
could do incredible number. In fact, that number that's on the screen right now, that's the number.
That's the number.
To answer your previous question, about 10 a minute.
10 a minute.
No, about 10 a minute. So they won the competition. Hollerith made these for the census. They were to process, despite it being a much bigger census, they did it in 6 years. So they brought the time down, got it all through. Once Hollerith had built these and used them for the census, they then took them to other countries and went, hey, you're doing a census too. This worked in America. Do you want it? And then they started to try and sell them to businesses to see if businesses would want to use these things to analyze their data, like insurance companies, that kind of thing.
So sort of like marketing it as some kind of business machine.
Yeah. some kind of
Internationally.
some kind of international business-like machine. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So when Hollerith made this for the census, he was just calling himself something like the Hollerith Electronic Tabulating System. He eventually formed a company, the Tabulating Machine Company, which in 1911, and some of you may know this story, merged with a bunch of other very similar companies because everyone got in on the
punch
tabulating.
cards for
it was
data management.
massive craze. You know, it was a real boom. Everyone, a lot of startups in that space. They all merged,
Sure.
and some of you may have heard of this. They became the Computing Tabulating System Company, something like that.
It's 4 words.
It was really complicated.
It has the word
a lot of
computing and
hyphens,
tabulating.
yeah. And then that was renamed to become IBM. So that became International Business Machine. So what I love is all our modern computers, or at least IBM, can be tracked directly to this ridiculous device.
Which is crazy.
So, I know. This is an ancestor of modern computers. It's
Which
just
is wild.
incredible. Although, of course, there were some great computers along the way, so we're going to carry on our journey through the museum. And spoiler, there's more punch card fun to come.
This guy processed 1,000 cards per minute,
1,000 cards a minute.
which is, what, 100 times as much as Hollerith's more manual processing. My image of the Hollerith machine is there's just like mercury splashing
Flying everywhere,
It's this absolute
yeah.
frenzy.
It was not the era of health and safety. I think we're going to see one of these in action later on.
That would be nice.
That is some terrible cable management. That's a money meter.
Yeah, so you trace the boundary of a region and it tells you its area. Did you see the differential analyzer? It's basically a way to solve differential equations directly. You set the parameters of whatever equation you want it to solve and then like draw out the graph of it.
That's very cool. This is the drive. They got one of these they turn on.
Oh boy, that's so huge.
All of that for 5 megabytes.
That's 5 pictures right there.
Somewhere in here there's like a supercomputer that had a bench built into it. I think it was a Cray or something, and you just sit down, get comfy. That is terrible cable management.
Is there a subreddit for oddly unsatisfying?
First gen iPod.
iPod?
I had one of those. You didn't have like a Palm Pilot?
Actually, we did. I never had one personally, but we dealt with Palm Pilots in school for some reason.
This is the future
This
kids.
is
Here's your Palm Pilot. Well, I've got one of those hats.
the Noogler hat?
Yeah, I got a Noogler hat. Okay, I definitely had one of those Atari 2600. Do you know I briefly had the world record for Space Invaders?
Really?
On the Atari 2600 PAL edition only. I just spent a month playing the game until I broke the record.
Well done. Well done.
Thanks. Grant's just having a go at Pac-Man here, and it's definitely not going to get competitive. Okay, we've hit home consoles, and now is my time to shine. Now, I should say I owned none of these when they first came out.
Okay.
But since then, I have managed to get Dreamcast, yes. Saturn, yes. N64, yes. Mega Drive I had when that came out. That's an exception. Jaguar, can't afford it. Whatever that is, no. I don't, what? I don't know what the Xbox is, but I didn't have that. I did have the Speak and Spell though. The Apple One.
Wow.
That is the original computer.
For $666.66.
Nerds. What's quite cool about the Apple One, as you can see, Steve Wozniak has signed the top of it with the Woz.
Oh, awesome.
Of course, IBM lived up to their name. They continue to build giant machines. For
Internationally.
For use in businesses.
DM was a less popular corporate name for whatever reason.
And they continued for a very long time to keep them punch card based.
Things advanced a lot more since the 1890s, and we're about to see a genuine 1401 punch card processor, sorter? What do you call them?
Yeah, I don't know. Business machine, I guess.
State-of-the-art punch card processing.
That's it. And this one was built in the 60s. We're going to have a quick look at it now, and then in a moment, they've got a public display of it doing what it does.
Sounds good.
There we go. Okay, I was just given a very quick tour of this sorting machine we'll have a closer look at. We're also joined by Ben now, who has a computing channel linked below. So this will sort these punch cards, and each column on the punch card has 12 possible values.
Okay.
And you choose which column you want to sort, and then there are 12 different bins. So each of these bins corresponds to one possible value, and then each time you want to sort for another column, you just got to stack them back up, put them through again. How does this work? So through to I is 9, and then you've got to subtract 9 to get this column. I'm not doing that.
All right, I already made a typo.
There, hit that. Now hit register, REG, hit release again, and one more REG. And it pops up here.
That's extremely satisfying.
And then there's your card.
All right.
Then an A is a top punch and a 1, and
Yep.
a B is a top punch and a 2, etc., etc.
Okay, so that's Grant. That's not bad. So this is the IBM 1401. Over here are the entry stations. This is where you would punch cards. That's the only way to get the data into the system. Once you've punched your cards, you can then use the card sorter over here. This will sort them on any column you want. One of the most useful things this was for, apparently, is if you dropped your entire box of thousands of punch cards that make up your program, as long as you've used a few columns to have an index number, you can use this to put them back in the correct order and then load them into the machine using this. This is a combination of in and out. It's I and O. This will be able to scan all the cards. That is the program. All these different punch cards have different bits of information on it. I believe the early versions of the IBM 1401, you could only use this. Later ones, you could get the expansion magnetic tape storage. So you could copy cards onto the tape.
That would be one of the things you can do, is read the card,
And then you got your program on that for the, otherwise you've got to keep rescanning it. Okay, right. Yeah, so you could get all your punch cards, you could run them through this, put them on the tape, and then when you want to actually do something, this is the kind of the CPU. So I'll jump around, the far side over here. So that is the main processor there. So everything goes into that. It's all solid state, so you just get the solid chips, you would put them in. Apparently you had to pay more if you want to upgrade to be able to multiply and divide. You get new chips, you'd put them in, they cost you extra money. And then finally, if you want to get a printout, I think you could send stuff back to the punch card in-out job, but I believe the main way to put it out was using the printer over here, and this was a very high quality printer for its time. And over there, that's a whole nother IBM 1401. They have two copies in here. That one was from Germany, where it was hired out to companies, and this one was used until 1995 to do invoicing for a country club. So everyone's drinks and everything they spent at the country club would be put on punch cards. It'd be sorted on this machine, and then the invoice is sent out. Huge thanks to the Computer History Museum for letting us come in, run around, do some filming. If you're ever in the Mountain View area, I highly recommend dropping by and seeing some of the exhibitions they've got going on here. I should also thank the principal sponsor of my channel, Jane Street. So actually, if you're into software development and analyzing data, Jane Street analyze all sorts of data to solve complex problems in the financial world. So if you're into that kind of thing, check out Jane Street. They support this channel. They're amazing. They mean I can run around and do stuff like this. And of course, I should thank Grant over here of 3 Blue 1 Brown fame. If you're not already subscribed to his channel, what's wrong with you? I'll put a link to it below. We've got the doubling sequence.
Yeah, we've got the doubling sequence.
So this is the one they printed out during the demo, and all your favorite powers of 2 are in there somewhere.
We've got 200 and...
Does it start at 1 or at 2?
It starts at 2.
Starts at 2.
Yeah,
okay, so if 1
sure.
is your favorite power of 2, I do apologize, it's not on there. So wow. I was going to say we will give this to someone who's watched the video, but Grant's busy destroying it in the wind. So, you know what, we are both going to sign this. We will put it on the charity eBay account for Stand Up Maths. So if you would like to have this ridiculous printout, it'll be signed by us and all the money goes to charity. I'll link to that below. So there you are. Once again, thank you so much, Grant, for coming along.
Super happy to be here. Thanks for letting me tag along.
Boom.